Good. So, so clearly from the three of you, there is a particular trend that we are seeing in terms of the problem identification itself. Now let's come to the solution part of it. As with everything else, I'm assuming that in the last 2 to 3 years, and that's where we've seen the maximum change or movement or adoption of technology in HR. Each of your organizations would also have tried, maybe, hopefully everything succeeded, but I'm fairly sure some of them would have failed, and would have learned something from that and moved on and tried to do something different the next time you adopted a different technology. So if I were to start with Suman, because you come from the Center of Excellence, and I'm sure you're at the forefront of bringing in newer and newer practices and trying to help make the entire process more efficient. What are the various technology-led interventions you've tried in the last 2 to 3 years? And where do you think that's taken you from where you were from a challenge perspective 3 years ago to where you are today? Has it addressed some of the stuff that you started addressing in about 3 years ago, when you, maybe last 3 years when you started looking at these technology-based solutions?
Actually, let me take it a little back even further, not just 2 to 3 years. I've been in the HR technology space for around 8 years now, and my initial brush with HR technology was this whole resume parsing thing that was supposed to solve, all the recruitment woes that we had at that time. Unfortunately, I dabbled with it for 4 years, and I think it just went nowhere. So you're talking about things that failed. That was the biggest thing that I think at that point in time, I started seeing towards the end of those 4 years where articles started coming in saying that, you know what, this is not going to solve recruiters' problems. But recently we did come up with a solution where it's not about resume parsing, but the ability to really understand and connect what is written in a resume. And a lot of resume parsers always talked about natural language processing, but what we realized is that if you do not have a taxonomy of skill that supports that particular conversation and that particular conversion of a particular resume into a score, it's never going to happen. And I think that is the key that we have realized, at least, or what's made it successful, of having an NLP-based resume parsing engine, which also has a solid skill taxonomy backing it so that we can interpret the job descriptions better. So that's been a big success for us, especially when you have the hiring managers and your business teams usually telling you to get things done faster and more efficiently.
Right.
We've at least seen that we've been able to cut around 20 to 30% of our lead times because we've been able to use technology like this. The other obviously has been our ability to do asynchronous interviewing, whether it's video or non-video based, but I think asynchronous interviews are proving to be extremely powerful because this whole scheduling and the necessity to meet and talk to each other at the same point in time is being killed, and therefore it's again becoming faster to get things done, and also it's becoming more efficient because I have recorded a set of questions that I need every candidate to respond. I don't need to necessarily sit with every candidate and go through it, whereas therefore I save a significant amount of time and I get all the responses back pretty quickly. So I think these are two of the bigger things that we've tried with among multiple other technologies that we've dabbled with.
Great, great. And from an efficiency perspective, how much do you think this has actually improved? You said 20 to 30% in the resume parsing. Did the video interviewing actually also
it's a significant cost saving for us in other than time, because if a person, instead of actually getting into delivery work, is sitting and interviewing 10 different people instead of having done it once, there's a significant cost that you save. So automatically you can say that I've saved 90% of the interviewing cost that way.
Great, wonderful. Jatinder, what's your take on what you've tried in the last few years? And
evidently, so there are two parts to it again. One is that what maybe Suman is alluding to is when we have some standard set of skills that are required. So every organization will have one base standard skills, and then there is the other set that I was talking about earlier, right? The guys who have this. So as far as the standard skills is concerned, there's no doubt that it takes a lot of time of the hiring managers, etc. So we've introduced both, what were we calling it? Talent assessment, right? Or the word not to be used as psychometric assessment. I was told it's now called behavioral assessment. And we definitely aligned it to the culture of the company, because we found that it was very essential to make sure that the person we want inside the company has to be integrated to the culture of the company. Without that, it becomes extremely difficult for both parties to work harmoniously and to produce efficient results. So technology definitely helps in that area. Is it that you don't do an HR interview as you call it? No, it definitely helps in giving the person who's talking to the candidate more insight on the personality of the person. So there's no doubt that the technology helps there. And then the other part, of course, is that you want some filtering, and you don't want the people to be given a set of 1,000 profiles to screen through, etc. So you have technology these days which can help you there. Having said that, now I come to the other part of it. The other part is that you are now, to have that competitive advantage, you are now looking at people who are not looking for jobs.
Right.
Right. I mean, you had Naukri, you had those portals. Everybody's got access to those portals. You don't want to pick up people from those kind of, you have vendors who will give you the same set of profiles to George, to Suman, to me. You don't want those guys anymore. You are looking for those people who are not looking for a job. How do you identify experts? How do you identify the geeks, the guys who are sitting and who never put their head up to say, hey, I'm there, but you know that person is a geek or an expert. This is what the hiring manager wants. Get me that guy. And that is where we found technology surprisingly comes very handy. So today you have data sciences to help you to identify. In fact, these days the data scientist can profile each and every one of us sitting here in the room to understand what skills we have, what we have done, what we have not done, where we go, where we don't go, what kind of forums we attend to, and reach a certain conclusion on how good you are in that particular skill that we are looking at. So that is where we are venturing. I wouldn't say we are there, but that is, and you cannot do it without technology. The only other way you can do it is through, I do not know, specialized vendors who have databases, who know each other, or references, or something like that. But if you were to look at a larger population and you were to, you have to use technology. There's no other way. The second part that Suman was talking about, definitely. You do not want your recruiter to spend time in scheduling and going through profiles and doing all that. You have technology to easily take care of it. And this is what, there are enough in many solutions in the market to do that. So there are various categories of interventions of technology.
Right.
But I think where it actually matters most is how we can use technology to find those gems amongst the larger population.
Perfect, great, wonderful. George, what's Cognizant has been at the forefront of technology adoption in HR. So what are your quick reactions to some of the points here?
Yeah, I would I would kind of echo what Suman and Jitendra said. For us at least, going beyond deployment of technologies, I think it's very important to underscore the importance of of aligning the recruitment organization with the business, and how business changes can necessarily influence your success in the recruitment space. So I mean, it's very clear that business cycles are now obviously a lot more accelerated in terms of change. Now you have a mix, given the line of business that we are in. You're required to get talent with both legacy skill knowledge as well as new age digital skills. So that kind of talent is difficult to find, right? And that's the talent that we all call as passive talent, right? The talent which is, in LinkedIn's own words, 93% of their own community. If you ask them that would you like a job change, they would say yes, right? So but they are not at the same time actively looking for jobs. So how do you kind of use your tools and point all your tools and technologies and enable recruiters to up their capability to both find those folks or get the technologies to surface these folks? Someone was referring to technologies that will stack rank folks based on their converged profiles and competencies. But then, how does the recruiter use that information? How do you kind of allow that individual to be an influencer to bring that talent on board? And that's where definitely investment in the employer brand is critical. I think if you just have the greatest tools, but you don't have the ability to complement it with the right employer brand, which will allow the candidate to experience a career in the organization that you're selling to them.
Right.
I think it's the left hand and the right hand just don't meet, right? So I think it's I would say it's a combination of technology, which is put to good use and in the right context in the organization, but coupled with very, very serious change management to make it work for the business.
Sure. So let's just move quickly to the last set of last question, and let's try to do a quick wind up because we're literally running out of time, and Vandana has been coming and kind of indicating to me that we've got to get off stage, and so what you're seeing this slew of technologies coming in. There's also a bunch of technologies that are there in some other fields that are looking like it can be used in HR, right? People are looking at social profiling. People are looking at machine learning. People are looking at psycholinguistics and so on and so forth. Where do you see these futuristic, as they may sound, technologies today fitting into your HR policies and practices in the next 2 to 3 years? Where do you see them? And let's try to finish it off in like 2 to 2 minutes so that we kind of give the audience a chance to quiz us as well. We'll start with Jatinder, I guess.
At the cost of a minute, I would like to talk about the challenges that I'm facing.
Sure.
So right now my challenge is not technology. My challenge is to move my group of people to absorb that technology. So my problem is that the candidate is absorbing technology much faster than my team being able to handle the new technologies that are coming in. So I'm actually always behind the candidate. The candidate has got an app. He says, hey, you guys don't have an app or something? I mean, where are you? What world are you living? So that's one of the biggest. He's spoken about change management. I do not know if it should be called change management. I don't think it's change. I think you need a big mindset change or whatever you may call it, because traditional methods of recruitment or getting talent insight are just not working anymore. Absorbing technologies that he talked about are much simpler, but giving them an idea about, okay, let's move out of the Naukri monster business and let's go beyond is itself taking a toll. Okay. Now coming to, you said what kind of technology. So again, I break it down into simple. One is the search. Search is totally different now. It's no longer Naukri, no longer LinkedIn. It's totally different. Okay, let's find out if somebody has written a paper, research paper. Who are the guys who've written research papers? Let's find those kind of guys. So that is the kind of search that we are talking about now.
Right.
The second part is getting the guy to understand our business. You need technology to sell your. So earlier you had a website, the guy went to the website and saw it. No, it doesn't work like that. There has to be some guy talking about the job, a video job description, and you name it. I mean, the innovation is like crazy in that area also. So
sure.
Here is, you're trying to tell the candidate, please come for an interview
sure.
to us. Third is, of course, the part about the interview, the various technologies that are available where you do various assessment tests, etc., etc. And then, of course, the whole process of candidate engagement till the time the person joins.
Sure.
So, do we use technology? We don't have a choice. I don't think we have a choice.
Sure. Suman, what are your perspectives on the futuristic technologies?
At least one thing that I see pretty quickly coming into play will be bots that will start chatting with the candidates. as if it's the recruiter sitting at the other end chatting with them. I think that is something that probably will come in the next 1 or 2 years. That's something that's already at work. You see that being used. Let's say you have a problem with your computer or something like that. You start chatting with you believe there's a technician at the other end, but it's actually a bot that's chatting with you and helping you solve your desktop, laptop problems. I see something very similar that will come into HR, where whether it's around advice around your career or questions that you have around recruiting, about the job that you're expected to do at your organization, I'm sure these things will start taking over and come in.
Sure, wonderful. George.
Well, for me, uh, technology and what you leverage as technology, and again the terms that all of this is really behind the scenes, right? It's only if you open up the hood of the car do you see what's underneath. But for the candidate, and I would even argue the recruiter and the hiring manager, it doesn't matter that you say you have NLP or machine learning or whatever, right? It has to work for them, right? Period. So I think again, how are you able to deploy it in your organization and make it work in a manner that will aid faster and more quality of hiring, from a decision support standpoint is critical. I think if you ask me, more than the technology, it's where you engage your talent. That's going to be important. I think mobile is definitely a very critical place to engage talent, because we all know 90% of people wake up and look at their mobile screens first, right? It's very clear that half that population today browses for jobs, reads about the reputation of the organization online. So it's very important that you are able to convert such people in, convert talent in their own ecosystem, and allow them to, as much as they browse and consume their personal content, be able to consume your content and engage with your organization. So I think, at least being on their own turf is very critical.
Brilliant. In fact, a quick anecdote that or a number that, or a statistic that I recently saw, it said that about 20% of job searches today happen on mobile phones in the restrooms. And people are not even, you've entered the restrooms of people to help them to kind of find jobs. So in that sense, I think technology has kind of pervaded every aspect of our life. And to kind of summarize what we heard, clearly there is a movement for tech replacing all your mundane jobs. There is very clearly tech is going to take away all the regular stuff that recruiters used to do even as late as a year back. The second is, go beyond the quantitative aspects or go beyond Excel sheets. Jatinder called off that something. How do you get that something in a candidate profile to match the DNA of the company? And a third, which George again spoke about, was about making everything completely personalized. The experience of the recruiter, the hiring manager, and the candidate. How can you make it as personalized as possible to kind of get them engaged to the job that is on offer there? So I think that kind of summarizes, and all of these clearly has a technology aspect to it. We've run out of time, as is the case with many such topics. It's a topic that needs discussions for probably a couple of hours, not 40 minutes. What we could do is next 5 minutes throw open this to the audience. I know there are questions way beyond 5 minutes, but let's try to limit it to about 3 to 5 minutes. So about 2 to 3 questions. So I've been told 2 to 3 questions. So let's do that. Who wants to go first? Any questions in the audience? Anything to do with anything that you've heard so far, or something that intrigued you when you saw the name of the panel discussion?
So the question I have for you guys would be, in a world of constant digital disruption, with technologies evolving, changing the way we act, the way we work, this results in countless new job families being introduced over time. Is it possible to be prepared and to create a workforce for tomorrow, or are we stuck with a reactive strategy to see what tomorrow actually looks like before we get ready?
I think all organizations are, especially knowledge-driven organizations are investing heavily in what you call a career architecture, which will allow folks to meaningfully traverse their career in the organization. What we'd like to believe is that how do you then transpose that process or that framework onto every talent selection, development, /development / progression process that you have in the organization. It's a long journey. I would be um, really underwhelmingly saying that it's kind of done within a space of a few months or years. But I think how organizations evolve and thereby are able to apply those frameworks very deeply into the different processes that you have, I think is critical, if you ask me.
Sure.
If I could just add, I think the other thing that we need to look at is if we could form these job families dynamically.
Yeah.
Today you have so much data available, you know how people's careers are progressing, right? So can you have your systems form those natural clusters for you and show natural movements based on whatever is there historically and the kind of changes that are happening at that point in time? Maybe that's one way to go.
So I want to address it differently. 5,500 employees and we have 360 job families and counting. What is changing is looking at the work being done rather than who we get into the system. So what most of the talent acquisition systems do not address are these availability of these short-term assignment kind of people who should be available to me for a duration of 6 months, do a job and go away.
Yeah.
I haven't seen much innovation in that area. And that is an area towards which we are moving very quickly. Right. So when you talked about job families, I should actually have some system where I can just pick up that crowd. Not there yet. I haven't come across.
Sure. So if there isn't any other question, let me have the honor of asking the question. How important do you think is, pulling out from what Jatin said, how important is it for each of you to now, do you think behavioral competency is key to job families across? Or is it still going to be restricted to, let's say, someone with a managerial role and above? Or how do you see that changing?
I think it is key. Most of the times, I think technology is an easy thing to assess, but what you really find is an organization becomes a great organization if everybody is culturally aligned. They share common visions, the principles are similar, they have a cultural fit into the organization. That's when the organization really can get multiple times the power of the individual there. If you're going to hire people who are not aligned to the organizational thought process, then I guess you're always going to find it difficult. You're going to have infant mortality. The guy is going to struggle. You're going to struggle with the guy. I think it's very, very key to have people who are behaviorally oriented to the way you want it to be in the organization.
But I thought behavioral orientation or behavioral assessment is essential for jobs which require behavioral assessment. So there is typically in Indian organizations, one group delivers, just does the job and delivers, but then there's a whole layer of people who are not producing, they are interacting. And they are the guys who you need to find out if they culturally fit your organization. Are they going to talk your language or not? So it is absolutely essential, and like all of us have faced, these delivery folks only become eventually the sellers of the product.
Right.
Right. So you get the wrong guy in, even at the delivery level, he's going to sell nothing.
Right. George, you want to add last couple of words on that?
No, no organization would want to, insist that they are not, behavioral competencies don't matter to them. It would matter to every organization. In our context, behavioral competencies occupy as much importance as functional domain or technical competencies and are defined and mapped to every role. As I was saying earlier, our intent is to measure behavioral competencies at the same level of intensity in our talent selection development process. And as they traverse through the role, they will realize that it is important that behavioral, how important behavioral competencies are to the delivery of that particular role.
Brilliant. Great. So thank you, gentlemen. It's been a wonderfully insightful session. 3 different insights from 3 different organizations and from 3 possible different perspectives as well. One end user and the other 2 defining processes and kind of mandating the kind of technologies that needs to be used. And thanks to the audience for being such a patient set of listeners. We hope that the entire interaction was as interesting as we hoped it would be. Unfortunately, we couldn't do the kind of fireworks that Arnab does in a show, so apologies for that. So thank you very much. Vandana, do you want?
Thank you, gentlemen. As promised, that was an un-Arnab-like session, precise, to the point, and insightful. Thank you to Rajiv as well for trying to play the devil's advocate.